Well-trained, well-armed, and highly experienced. That is the nature of each member of the faction known as Duty. Once the tip of the spear for military operations in the zone, the faction was formed by a number of military deserters. The faction's three primary leaders, Generals s.t.a.l.k.e.r, Krylov, and Voronin, were once officers tasked with leading a clandestine military force into the zone, ultimately with the goal of detonating a nuclear weapon at its center. The officers' expedition was horrifically underprepared for this mission, and were unaware of the unique dangers they would face in the zone. The casualties he witnessed left then-officer s.t.a.l.k.e.r resentful for those he felt had sent him and his men into certain death. Growing dissatisfied with military leadership, s.t.a.l.k.e.r orchestrated a communications blackout for his expedition, fostering further anti-military sentiment among his men, who now believed that they had been left to die. S.t.a.l.k.e.r then took advantage of this chaos, uniting many of the survivors into his own faction, which he then called Duty. Since its formation, the faction has been known to welcome like-minded and capable stalkers into its ranks, should they prove themselves. Having seen a number of their comrades succumb to the cruel nature of the zone, Duty prides itself on its intense hatred of all things the zone creates. The faction feels the zone to be a blight that threatens all of humanity, often fanatically viewing themselves as saviors of the human race.
Dangerous mutants, anarchists and bandits will not stop Duty on its triumphant march to save this planet and its citizens!
To understand Duty is quite simple. They only have one goal: destroy everything that stands in their way. The faction in no way seeks to understand the inner machinations of the zone. They simply pass on artifacts to the zone's scientists so that they may better bring destruction to it. This violent nature does not stop at creations of the zone, however, as the faction seeks to obliterate any humans that stand in the way of their goals. This is best seen in the conflict between Duty and its antithesis, a faction known as Freedom. The story behind Freedom is one for another day, but put simply, their ideals directly oppose every tenet of Duty's. The differences between the philosophies of Duty and Freedom can best be summarized as the relationship between fascism and anarchy. Duty is a scrupulously organized hierarchy, with each member having been assigned specific roles and ranks, much like that of a military unit. Freedom is the exact opposite: pure, unadulterated chaos. Duty was holed up in the Agroprom Research Institute for a period of time, but ultimately relocated to the Rostock factory in 2012. During this time, leadership changed hands frequently. Originally, General s.t.a.l.k.e.r took charge until he and his squad became prisoners to a spatial anomaly, ultimately forcing him to commit suicide. Following this, General Krylov took charge of the faction, only to be eliminated during the period known as the Faction Wars. Finally, Duty was left in the hands of General Voronin. Voronin splintered Duty in his orchestration of a ceasefire with Freedom, leaving many of the more dedicated members of Duty to disobey these orders and continue the conflict. Firefights between Duty and Freedom are still a semi-regular occurrence in the zone. Members of Duty are known to prefer and to be issued typical Warsaw Pact firearms, typically favoring automatic weapons like base-model Kalashnikovs and the Groza bullpup assault rifle. The faction has its own custom-made armor in the form of the PS series of universal protection, often improving with quality according to a member's rank. Additionally, Duty seems to have a particular fondness for the applications of exosuits, often seen equipped on at least one member of the faction's away teams. Duty is known by many to be either a powerful ally or a fierce enemy. Whether you choose to join them in their crusade or to oppose them, it will no doubt color your fate in the zone greatly. Be sure to choose wisely.